You have your values defined, you know what you want to achieve, but the moment you try to bring that vision into the real world, you hit a rigid wall. Impact is the moment your intent collides with reality, and reality pushes back. Over the next 5 minutes, we are going to build a customized 5-part kinetic strike plan. To do this, you need 3 things in front of you right now: a project you've been stalling on, a blank piece of paper, and a timer. Internal clarity is excellent, but until you execute, it is only potential energy. This plan provides the specific steps to transition your ideas from a document into active, real-world impact. Step 1 is identifying the exact nature of your resistance. You cannot solve a vaguely defined problem. Whenever you move from thinking to doing, you face 2 distinct forces. The first is external friction, the bureaucratic red tape and cynical coworkers pushing against your project. The second is internal drag, your own procrastination and fear of failure. The psychiatrist Viktor Frankl observed that there is a space between a stimulus and our response. Your impact is determined by what you build within that space. Draw a line down your blank document. On the left, list your external friction. On the right, your internal drag. Now, at the bottom, write the absolute worst-case scenario if your project completely fails. The Stoics used this practice to examine their anxieties. By explicitly defining the worst possible outcome, like a rejected proposal or public embarrassment, you see that your core foundation will survive the setback. Dragging these subconscious fears onto paper exposes them as temporary obstacles. Doing this strips your internal drag of its ability to paralyze your progress. With the internal fear mapped out, we can turn to the left side of your page, the external roadblocks. Often, this looks like a flurry of stagnant meetings or rigid institutional rules. Socrates practiced the intellectual strike. He shattered false certainties by asking the difficult, uncomfortable questions in rooms where everyone else was blindly nodding in agreement. Sometimes pushing directly against a complex institutional wall generates nothing but exhaustion. Instead of brute force, look for the path of least resistance. Find where the system is rigid and flow around it like water. On your paper, add one specific tactic to clear your path. Write down the precise question you need to ask in your next meeting, or note how you will bypass the bottleneck entirely. Next, look at the specific people causing friction on your project. You will inevitably encounter cynical or manipulative stakeholders. Marcus Aurelius used a Stoic filter. When someone tries to provoke you, recognize that they are experiencing a limbic hijack, a biological state where their emotional brain has overridden their logic. This is an objective event, not a personal attack. Apply the strategy of the lion and the fox. Be the lion to set strong boundaries, and the fox to recognize and redirect traps. On your list, assign either a lion or fox tactic next to each difficult person's name. But be careful. Carl Jung warned of psychological inflation. If you let this strategic influence become an ego trip, you lose your own integrity and your actions become purely manipulative. You achieve real external impact by maintaining internal boundaries and routing around the emotional reactions of others, treating them as obstacles to navigate rather than enemies to destroy. You now have a map of your friction. It is time to move from planning the strike into executing it. First, turn off every digital notification on your devices. An amygdala hijack, an immediate reactive stress response triggered by pings and alerts, will break your focus. Protect your attention. The psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi defined flow as a state of optimal, unbroken concentration. To reach this state, biological constraints require strict monotasking. You can only do one thing at a time. Striking at a single problem creates a biological feedback loop. Successfully completing a focused, high-friction task triggers the release of dopamine and serotonin, chemically rewarding your brain for doing the work. Look at the bottom of your page and write down your single, uncompromising goal for the next 90 minutes. Not 2 goals, just 1. Completing this isolated, high-friction work sprint shifts your psychology. It transitions you from being a passive observer into acting as a deliberate creator. Look at the document in front of you. You have mapped your external friction, neutralized your internal fears, built tactics to bypass roadblocks and set a singular, focused target. True influence is not something you force upon the world. It is the natural byproduct of your own unshakable integrity colliding with reality. When this video ends, close the window, block out the noise, and immediately start your timer. The world will always resist the reactive mind, but it orbits the deliberate actor. Execute your strike.